Known as Dios, God by his countrymen, Diego Maradona was worshipped in Argentina and by 1986 was at the peak of his powers. But just 2 years earlier, he'd left Barcelona, idolized by the supporters yet condemned by the authorities. His career at the Camp Nou spanned just 2 seasons, was tarnished by illness, injury, disputes on and off the field, and eventually ended in disgrace.
They offered me a 5-year contract extension, but I turned it down, as I just wasn't happy, and Napoli came in with an offer.
His move to Italy was unexpected and left Maradona himself with a sense of trepidation.
I'd moved from Barcelona, a team challenging for every title, to Napoli. It felt like I was playing in the 2nd division.
But any doubts were soon dispelled.
When I arrived in Naples, I realized it was a much smaller city, but they lived for football like I wanted them to.
At the 1986 World Cup finals in Mexico, Maradona led his country safely through the group stage and passed South American rivals Uruguay in the last 16. He was inspirational and incomparable, and would need to remain so.
The team kept improving. We became more and more motivated, especially through seeing Diego in such good form. He was infectious.
This monument in Buenos Aires pays tribute to the 649 Argentinians who lost their lives in the Falklands conflict of 1982, when Argentina and Great Britain went to war over the Falkland Islands. On April 2nd that year, Argentina invaded the islands, a British-claimed territory in the South Atlantic Ocean, less than 500 kilometers from the Argentine coast. It was an act with which Argentina sought to confirm sovereignty of the islands, but Great Britain declared war and military forces were dispatched. Lasting just over 10 weeks, the conflict saw 907 lives lost, the majority Argentinian. And on the 14th of June, Argentina surrendered. The islands remained in British hands. In Mexico, 4 years later, a quirk of fate saw the countries meet again, this time, though, on a football pitch. The Mexican capital hosted their World Cup quarter-final.
It was the first game after the war, so we definitely felt it. But more than that, it was a quarter-final of a World Cup.
Grandissimo. Grandissimo.
It was massive.
Bueno, primero
Massive.
En términos futbolísticos, pero
Firstly,
había
in footballing terms. But there were other things going on. A political angle, emotive ties. The Falklands War was very fresh in Argentinian memories, and it was impossible to avoid that pressure.
The manager, the late Sir Bobby Robson, he was saying there was been telegrams off the Queen and telegrams off Margaret Thatcher, so I think we knew what it was all about, even though it might have been more than a football match, really.
It was like I was a thief. I stole their wallets.
We saw it clearly. I mean, everybody on the bench saw it was handball.
I saw that Diego couldn't reach the ball with his head, but I didn't see the handball.
It was quick thinking on his part, cheating, he got away with it.
6 minutes into the second half, the deadlock was broken by one of the most controversial goals in the history of the game. Maradona called it the hand of God.
I knew I wouldn't get there, because when I gave the ball to Valdano, Sansom got there before him. So Sansom got to it first and knocked it back, but I kept on running because I was playing a 1-2 with Valdano and was hoping to get the ball back from him. And the ball just looped up. And being just 5'6", I think I've made myself a couple of inches taller. I wasn't going to beat Shilton in the air. So I put my fist up and I put my head just behind. And Shilton came out with 2 hands. He just didn't wise up.
no se aviva.
We didn't even just have to see the reaction of Peter Shilton to think something was wrong. We saw it clearly that he went up and he used his hand and he punched it in. So we just expected the referee to give a free kick.
I was the last to be involved before the ball looped into the air. And when it happened, I was on the ground. From there, I looked up, but I didn't see the handball. But I did know that it was impossible for him to score with his head.
I just turned away, thinking that Shilton was going to get there, and then the crowd went up, so I didn't really see it. I just remember having a glimpse, thinking Shilton's going to get it, and then, thinking, how was that gone in?
When I saw the linesman running back to the halfway line, I said, come on, celebrate. Put your arms around me. It's a goal. Because if we doubted it, then the linesman and referee would doubt it too, and they would have disallowed it.
It was a Tunisian referee who obviously couldn't understand much English, but once the decision's made, you're not going to get his change his mind.
So when I told my teammates to embrace me and celebrate, which they did, the English surrounded me and wanted me to admit that I'd touched the ball with my hand. But how was I going to say anything? Listen, it's too late. It's happened, and it's in the past. I think it's a goal you dream about, and not just because I scored it.
I'll never forget it. I wake up in the cold sweat thinking about it, to tell you the truth.
It was a work of art.
To have that composure shows what a great player he is.
For many, it remains the greatest goal ever scored.
Enrique engancha, le va a tocar para Diego. Ahí la tiene Maradona, lo marcan dos, pisa la pelota Maradona. Arranca por la derecha el genio del fútbol mundial. Y es el tercero a tocar para Borruchaga siempre Maradona. Genio, 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 ta, 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 ta.
It was just a great goal. Sometimes you got to hold your hands up and say it's a great piece of work by a fine player, a great player.
Hector Enrique likes to take the credit. He says his pass was so good, it left me free. I received the ball from him a long way from goal, and I was lucky enough to have the momentum, and I knew that the English weren't going to stop me. They weren't going to get the ball off me.
I have recurring nightmares about not being able to get there. I mean, it's very, very quick. That's the most asked question I always have, why didn't you kick it? And I even still ask myself that.
When I saw Fenwick hesitate, I just pushed the ball forward. When I went past him, he tried to bring me down by putting his hand across me. But I was going at 100 miles an hour. No one was going to stop me. Just as I was about to shoot, I saw Shilton and realised he was covering the whole goal. So when I'm about to shoot, I see Shilton coming out like this, and he was blocking my route to goal, so I threw a dummy, took the ball on a bit, and Shilton went to ground. I put it in, and I felt a kick from Butcher that nearly broke my right ankle. But the joy of scoring that goal was so great that it just didn't hurt. After the game, I think my ankle swelled up like this.
He's my favorite player of all time. In my opinion, the best in the world ever. So to be there on that occasion, as much as it was hurting because it's against England, it was just a great goal to watch, I must admit. Although it was bad because it was against us, it was a great goal to watch.
After the game in the dressing room, he told me that for the entire run, he'd been looking for a chance to pass the ball to me. I was at the far post in line with him. But that tells you something about the amount of thoughts, ones he uses, ones he doesn't, that went through his head during those few seconds. That's the mind of a true genius in action.
England rallied through Gary Lineker, but it wasn't enough. Argentina won 2-1 to reach the semi-finals.
After that, we were very confident and wanted to go on to become champions. England was our most difficult match, and without Diego, we would have had problems winning that one.
Argentina had won the war on the football field, revenge of sorts for the Falklands conflict.
It was a way of saying, when you have superior weapons, you can defeat us.
But when the weapons are the same, we win. It was a consolation for Argentina.
Los argentinos, no?
Fresh from his success against England, Maradona carried his incredible form through to the semi-final against Belgium. After a goalless first half, he opened the scoring with a piece of instinctive finishing. And his second was another breathtaking individual effort, comparable to his second against England in the previous round. Maradona and his team were on a roll.
The team was united, and the seventh best player before the start of the tournament had become the best, and that was me. The team they had written off for dead got past England, got past Belgium, and against all odds, by the time we met West Germany in the final, we already felt that we were the champions.
Only West Germany stood in the way of Maradona fulfilling his boyhood dream, winning the World Cup.
We said to ourselves, look, we can do this. And that made us strong. We didn't waste any energy. We rested well, and we didn't train too much.
During the final, he was less prominent, as West Germany marked him very tightly, especially during the first half, when Lothar Matthäus shadowed him everywhere he went. But that gave the rest of us a chance to shine.
And shine they did. Maradona remained tightly shackled, but Argentina took the lead midway through the first half when José Luis Brown headed home Valdana's free kick. Valdana himself doubled the lead 10 minutes into the second half. With a 2-goal advantage, Argentina had one hand on the trophy. But the West Germans refused to surrender. With 16 minutes remaining, Andreas Bremer's corner was forced home by captain Karl-Heinz Rummenigge. And 7 minutes later, an almost identical goal from Rudi Völler levelled the score.
Even when Germany equalised to make it 2-2, we still felt we were going to be champions. Even if the game had gone to extra time, we would have won easily.
Perhaps inevitably, Maradona stepped up. His sublime pass with 6 minutes remaining released Jorge Burruchaga.
It's very difficult to describe or put into words. I came from a very poor family who had very little, and you find yourself scoring a goal that won the World Cup. Thinking about just that in those seconds, or was it a minute, as I was coming back with Valdano to the centre circle, and where finally we said to each other, "We've won the World Cup," provided me with the happiest moments of my football career.
The final whistle blew. Argentina had won the World Cup for the second time.
Without him, Argentina wouldn't have won the World Cup. Basically, Diego won the World Cup on his own, and there has never been anyone, not even Pelé, who won the World Cup so much by themselves.
It's a unique feeling. As a footballer, you can lift many trophies, but to hold the World Cup is something that every player dreams of. I've never felt as proud as when they handed that trophy to me. Not many people have had that feeling.
Having conquered the world, Maradona's next challenge was to win the Italian title with Napoli. His first 2 seasons at the Stadio San Paolo had seen the team improve markedly, but remain trophyless. Maradona approached club president Corrado Fellaino, the level of his ambition made clear.
I personally asked Fellaino for players who could help us challenge for the title against the northern teams like Juve, Inter and Milan. And Fellaino said, yes, I'll get them for you. And I started to pick the players I wanted. I went to meet them, and convinced them to sign for Napoli. When I'd got what I wanted, people said, ooh. And that's when I started to fly the flag for the south of Italy.
Napoli began the 86-87 season with a 13-match unbeaten run. They were true title contenders, and Maradona was leading the way.
It was tiring. It was so tiring, because we'd be thinking about him the day before. You wouldn't get any sleep. It was a disaster, as he'd already beaten you by the time you faced him. You were just a physical wreck. But seriously, I played against Maradona several times, and I was pretty rough with him on the pitch too. But he always took it well. He never complained, and he never talked back.
Maradona never lost sight of his goal. Napoli were beaten just 3 times that season, and for the first time ever were crowned champions of Italy. They won the league with 2 games to spare, finishing 3 points clear of defending champions Juventus.
We started to gain respect, and when we won our first Scudetto, they said, hey, what's going on here? We'd bought well. When I arrived, it looked like we would be candidates for the retrocessione. In other words, fighting against relegation.
It was an historic occasion, as you can imagine, being that it was the first time we'd won the league title. It was something that had seemed impossible before. We saw things that were unimaginable. Those celebrations could only have been seen here, nowhere else.
The club's ambition was further underlined when they signed Brazilian World Cup star Careca for the following season. And he signed for one reason alone.
To be honest, my transfer to Napoli totally revolved around the fact of wanting to play alongside Maradona. I'd had another offer at the time from Real Madrid, but I chose Napoli because it was my dream to play with Maradona and to have the chance to make my mark in the game, playing alongside the greatest player in the world.
The 2 South Americans formed an understanding with Italian Bruno Giordano during the 87-88 season. Between them, they scored 36 of 55 league goals, as Napoli finished second to Milan. Giordano left at the end of that season, but the trio has gone down in history.
Our only problem was to make sure that we could get the ball to the final third of the pitch. Then, those 3 players would take around 15 minutes to kill the game. We didn't need to do much, because all 3 of them would create something out of nothing.
In 1989, Napoli finished second again, this time to Inter. But they made up for that disappointment by winning the UEFA Cup, defeating West Germany's Stuttgart in the final over 2 legs. Napoli had won the first leg at home 2-1 and only needed a draw in the return fixture 2 weeks later. They took a 3-1 lead, and even though Stuttgart scored twice more, Napoli won 5-4 on aggregate. The Italian side won a European trophy for the first time.
We won the Italian Cup, we won the Super Cup against Juventus, and afterwards, we won the UEFA Cup too. We won so many things at Napoli. I think that as time goes by, they will love that Napoli team even more, because that era is not going to come back. It was my Napoli, the Napoli I led and built up. Sadly, there just isn't a player there now who dares to say, let's get ready and challenge the north of Italy. So Napoli's success is over. And that's why I say that with every day that passes, our reputation grows.
The success continued the following season as the club regained its Serie A crown. Maradona scored 16 goals to finish as the club's leading scorer for the 5th season out of 6.
We had some great times that season. We also had some tough times, from the press and the fans too. Fans want you to win all the time, and sometimes that's just not possible. But we were a well-balanced side, and we got our award in the end.
And by common consent, such success would have been impossible without the presence of Diego Maradona.